Baseball America is sponsoring tonight's show. At the bottom of the screen here, you'll see a QR code, and you can go get yourself 30% off for your first year on your annual subscription. Listen, Baseball America, I'm going to tell you right now, it is my favorite outlet when it comes to anything prospects, when it comes to anything scouting reports. Those guys over there do an amazing job. They've done an amazing job for years. I do like MLB Pipeline, for the Red Sox. I do like Sox prospects, but, Baseball America, if you're looking for a wide range of just information when it comes to any player at any level in any minor league system, Baseball America is absolutely the number one stop, in my opinion, for all of that information. And they have a great deal going on right now. Use the code MONSTER30 and you get 30% off for your first year. That's a very good deal. I've been a member of Baseball America for a while now. I over on my main channel, that's what I use when it comes to anything prospects, and it never fails me, right? They do a great job over there. I'm telling you, not just because they're sponsoring the show, I'm letting you know it's a great deal, and I've been a member of Baseball America for about, 5 years now. So absolutely think that's a great deal. They have a QR code right there on the screen. You can just scan it, and then that'll bring you right to that promotion. But you could also go to the website and type in Monster30 in the promo code section. So thank you to Baseball America. We're actually going to be talking to Baseball America this coming week. We're going to be talking Red Sox prospects, so be on the lookout for that. Now, let's dive into tonight's show, shall we? So this past weekend, I would say the biggest news that we've gotten is there seems to be a divide when it comes to a right-handed bat. So thank you to Boston Sports Gordo. He is always doing a great job when it comes to putting out the news, along with other people out there like Tyler Milliken. And he says here, agents around the league believe Alex Cora and Sam Kennedy want to add a middle-of-the-order bat, but Craig Breslow, John Henry, and Tom Werner are cautious. This is from Peter Abraham of the Boston Globe. We can actually go here right to the quote. And he says here, agents representing prominent free agent hitters have been hearing the same thing from Craig Breslow this offseason. He believes their prospects are going to be stars. That actually ties in very well for tonight's show. The Sox are banking on Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, and Marcelo Meyer to have a major impact this season and aren't willing to go beyond short-term team-friendly deals for free agent hitters. Agents have come away believing Alex Cora and Sam Kennedy want to add a middle-of-the-order hitter. But Breslow, John Henry, and Tom Werner have been cautious. It explains why the Red Sox have so far done nothing to improve their lineup this offseason, even after losing outfielder Tyler O'Neill to the Orioles as a free agent. He goes on to say here, it also explains, in part, why Breslow has yet to sign a free agent hitter to a major league contract during his 15 months as chief baseball officer. So, this is interesting. It's very interesting because, we're going to dive into the Red Sox farm system and whatnot tonight, all the updated rankings from Keith Law, from ESPN Plus as well. But it's no secret the Red Sox farm system, especially on the position player side of things, has really beefed up over the last few years. I've personally talked to people out there, one who is in the scouting industry, and there are a lot of scouts out there that think the Red Sox farm system right now is head and shoulders above the rest. I've been told that personally by someone in the scouting industry, saying that they have the best farm system, right? I've talked with David Sandlin. You can go check out that interview that I posted the other day. Great interview. Thank you for David coming on for the show. And, we even talked with Mikey Romero a little while back. Both those guys have, obviously they are prospects within the Red Sox system, but both those guys have come out and said the farm is absolutely stacked, right? These guys have been, moving their way through the minor league system. So they've been seeing a whole bunch of players, man. And when you hear both these guys rave about the farm the way they have, I mean, that speaks volumes, if you ask me. And obviously, the top guys in the system right now, like they just mentioned from the Peter Abraham article: Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, and Marcelo Meyer. These are three guys that can actually help the Red Sox this year in a major way. Now, there is definitely two sides of this where there's a debate, right? Where do you want to trust the prospects, this young talent, or would you rather go out there and get the veteran bat? All right. Now, with me, I always like to look at things down the middle. I always like to look at things from a couple of different angles. For me personally, I definitely see the upside in getting a veteran guy like Alex Bregman, maybe even a trade for Nolan Arenado, whatever it may be. I have always been a believer. I like to ease the prospects in. I like to ease the young guys in. And if they end up just coming up and putting on a show, then that's great, right? But at least give them a bit of a soft landing spot to come in and show what they can do, right? Without too much pressure on them. You know, you think about Dustin Pedroia, right? Dustin Pedroia, one of the all-time greats for the Red Sox. He didn't come up in 2007, out of nowhere and just start lighting the world on fire. Actually, remember that 2007 season. He got off to a terrible start that year. They brought him up in 2006. They had him get a little bit of experience towards the end of the year. They didn't throw him right into the fire. Jacoby Ellsbury, right? They kind of eased him in as well. And that's a perfect example, if you ask me, because remember the Red Sox, they had Coco Crisp for their starting center fielder that year in 2007. And remember, he was starting to have some struggles, and they brought up Jacoby and, kind of eased him in, right? And then look what it ended up doing in the postseason that year. Ended up being a very productive player that postseason to help get the Red Sox to that World Series championship. That's the way I've always seen it. Let the guys kind of ease their way in and then let them produce. Now, I also see the other side where you look at some, if you look at prospects these days, you go take a look at Jackson Merrill with the Padres. You go take a look at Jackson Chourio. These young players are so advanced, right? They're so good. Right? It's amazing how good these young players are, right? That's just showing how far the game is coming along, especially at the, very young levels, even high school, right? You're getting guys that are just so advanced these days. And you take a look at Jackson Merrill this past year of the Padres. Had a great year. He was one of the Padres' best players this year. He won the job out of spring training. I think, honestly, you could have Christian Campbell do a similar thing. He just lit the world on fire this past year in the minors, just had a meteoric rise through the system. I think Roman Anthony, obviously, same thing. I mean, what he's done in the last couple of years has been, flat out amazing. Not just the numbers he's been putting up, but just the way he carries himself, right? The one word I keep hearing with Roman Anthony is the maturity. One word I keep hearing about Christian Campbell as well. It's how he's just a calm guy, right? He's a little bit more low key. It's just the way these guys handle themselves, right? There's, yes, there's talent, but there's also the other side of it where, the mental part of it. And I feel like the Red Sox, they've been seeing the way these two guys have played. Even Marcelo Meyer as well. The problem with Meyer, he just needs to stay healthy, right? But you take a look at the way, these guys have been conducting themselves. And I honestly think the Red Sox, they see that. I think they see the maturity level on these guys. And they probably think they could throw these guys into the fire, even in a pressure cooker of a city like Boston, and they could probably handle it. And you take a look, funny enough, I was actually, looking at some old articles this past year, back in April. Baseball America, who is sponsoring tonight's show, Christian Campbell excites Red Sox with new swing, right? Christian Campbell has a bit of a hitch in his swing, right? Not like Hunter Pence level back in the day, but like a smidge of it, right? And there have been, guys out there that say, oh, that could end up being a problem at the major league level with the elite pitching. But if you just look at the way Campbell just destroyed pitching this past year, it didn't really seem to be a problem. If he ends up having to make some adjustments at the major league level, because if you also factor in, the pitch recognition he has, the pitch selection that he has, he is off the charts with his plate discipline, right? But yeah, sure, maybe there's a bit of a mechanical thing with Campbell, but it doesn't seem to be bothering him one bit. Now, could you see some times, or maybe he's got to make a couple of adjustments in the cage? Yeah, you could possibly see something like that. So that's where I'm starting to wonder, if you go back also to Craig Breslow's comments about a month ago when he was talking about where this right-handed bat could come from. He mentioned, maybe it could come from somewhere within the organization. The more I look back on that article, the more I feel like he was telling us what the plan is. I really do think, I'm starting to believe more that they think Christian Campbell, maybe even Vaughn Grissom, maybe he gets a shot. But I really do think, I'm starting to think they're very high on of course they're high on Christian Campbell, but I think it's even more than we think. I think they actually feel like this guy, and we even had a report not too long ago as well, they think, he's a guy that could win a job out of spring training, right? I really think that is probably the right-handed bat. Do I think that's the best way to go? Over all of my time being a Red Sox fan for, 25 plus years now, and seeing the way the Red Sox have gone about, bringing up prospects and winning championships along the way, I am more for the guys that are coming up to, again, get eased in. That's the way I like to go personally. But you know what? If there's a guy that's just too good and he just forces his way and he just breaks down that barrier, then I'm all for it, If the Reds, listen, and I'm going to say this too. I'm going to say this, and again, this is coming from me, where I'd rather these guys have a bit more of a soft landing. The Red Sox, if you go back over the years, the one thing that they have done very well when it comes to player development are the position players. They have done phenomenal over the years. Look at all the position players they've developed that have ended up being impact major leaguers. I mean, more than you can count. I already mentioned a couple of Dustin Pedroia, Jacoby Ellsbury. Look at the guys they got now. Jarren Duran, Casas, when he's healthy. The guy's ridiculous. So many examples. If there is one organization that I trust, say what, I know that you're going to have the negative Nancys out there, that are going to just harp on the Red Sox front office and whatever. They never stop. But the one thing that you cannot deny is they have done a great job when it comes to developing position players. And if there is one organization that I trust, it's going to be the Red Sox when it comes to that. If they feel like Campbell is that right-handed bat, then cool. Now, leading to Alex Bregman, we got a couple of reports. We had this the other day. While it seems almost inevitable that first baseman Pete Alonso returns to the Mets, the Detroit Tigers and Boston Red Sox loom as co-favorites for third baseman Alex Bregman, with no movement in Astros talks. I mean, that was a little surprising, to see that. I didn't really expect to see that. But because the way things have been going with the Astros as of late, and Alex Bregman, right? We've been seeing all the reports. Jose Altuve playing left field. Who saw that one coming? I mean, why not? I mean, the defense at second base has not been very good with Jose Altuve. Why not just put him out in left? I mean, it can't get any worse, right? I mean, sure, could they go after, a better defensive left fielder? And sure. But if you want Bregman back in the fold, if you want to keep him as an Astro for life, then I think Altuve, the veteran player that he is, if he's willing to make that sacrifice, then go for it. However, one problem that seems to be looming when it comes to getting a deal done is Bregman supposedly does not want to take that much of a pay cut when it comes to his AAV. I feel like personally sitting here right now, they'll eventually figure something out, right? They moved Breslow, that cleared a little bit of salary. I think eventually they just figure it out. When I saw this the other day, that the Tigers and the Red Sox loom as co-favorites, I don't know, man. It kind of made me think, is this leverage? Is this someone from the Boris Corporation, putting this out there, trying to get the Astros to bite a little bit? I'm not sure, Now, we also got another report here from John Heyman that there is also another club out there, along with the Astros, that have a 6-year offer on the table. I personally think that team is the Blue Jays. The way, with how aggressive they've been this offseason, I feel like that offer is coming from the Blue Jays. I could be completely wrong. That's just my gut telling me that. I feel like the 2 6-year offers are from the Astros and the Blue Jays. I mean, if they're offering more money than the Astros, now you also have to remember too, there's going to be a bit of a difference in the taxes, right? Texas is a tax-free state. You're going to have more taxes when it comes to, and I'm not sure the exact numbers, but you're going to get taxed more up there in Toronto, right? So I wonder if that's coming into play. Does he want to go to Toronto? That's what I think is going on. I think Toronto has a good offer on the table, but he probably just doesn't want to go there. That's just my thinking. I think Bregman to the Red Sox could still happen. And, I've talked with a couple of people out there. They have told me that, the Red Sox, they're in the mix. But it's not a question of if they're in the mix. It's how much, right? There was a while there where, Jared Carrabis over on Section 10 was kind of hinting at the fact there doesn't even seem to be an offer on the table. Then, I still think. But then we also had Carlos Baerga. He put out there not too long ago that the Red Sox do have an offer on the table. I know he's a bit hit or miss, but he is putting it out there. I personally think that whether there's an offer on the table or not, I still think the Red Sox have at least an open line of communication based off of, people that I've spoken to. Offer, no offer, I don't know, right? Because you're hearing kind of conflicting things on that. I feel like there's still some kind of an open line of communication. I feel like the Red Sox are open to it, but they, again, you kind of go back to this article here from Peter Abraham, where they don't want to go, beyond a short-term deal. I think they're willing to bring in Bregman if it's for their terms, a short-term deal with an opt-out. That's what I think is going on here. And listen, I'll say this, I'm not trying to keep up, the hope for people out there that, think that he could end up being with the Red Sox. Who knows? Maybe, and if the Tigers, whatever offer they have on the table, well, I'm not sure what's going on with that. But if Bregman wants to bet on himself, like we saw, like with Matt Chapman with the Giants, he took the 3-year deal with the opt-out, ended up, figuring out a new extension, right? He bet on himself and it worked out. Maybe Bregman could do the same thing. If he feels like the offers that he's getting, for 6 years aren't to his liking, he feels like he wants to go out there and bet on himself, Fenway Park would be the best spot for him. If he really wants to juice up his numbers, this would be the best spot to bet on himself. So I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like eventually he'll go back to the Astros. I could be wrong. But I'll leave it open. Depending on, we don't know what Bregman wants to do. It's up to him at the end of the day, right? Like these front offices like to say. It all comes down to what the player's preferences are, right? And if he wants to do the opt-out deal, if there even is one on the table, I don't know, then I'll leave that open. I'll leave the possibility open. Again, though, I feel like he's going to go back to the Astros. I feel like they'll work something out eventually. So, when it comes down to Christian Campbell, I think the Red Sox, they feel like they don't need to go and bet against themselves. I feel like they think, okay, you know what? We got a guy that we're very high on that, if Bregman comes here, awesome. All right, if he wants to do a short-term deal with an opt-out, okay, cool. If not, that's okay, right? Because we got a guy in Christian Campbell where, he's a prospect. there's a bit of risk there, throwing him into the fire. But if they feel like he can mentally handle it, and if they feel like he can, his performance can play, then they don't. If that's how they feel, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but if they feel like that, if they think that, and I trust those guys when it comes to the player development side of things, they don't need to go out there and throw down something big for Bregman because they feel like they have a guy already in the fold. So now, do I think that's the best thing? Well, I think that's a different conversation, right? I mean, I don't know. I trust the guys in the front office more than my potato brain. I'd rather ease a guy in, but if they feel like he can do it, then they don't need to bid against themselves. And if Bregman ends up taking a deal based off of preference to come to Fenway Park, maybe juice up his numbers a little bit, then hey, I think the Red Sox, they're just kind of hanging back at this point. Now, could they revisit some other options, that have been brought up this offseason? The Arenado thing, I feel like the Arenado thing is probably not going to happen, honestly. That was getting hot there for a little while. We even saw Tristan Casas get brought up in that. Arenado saying that he would like to come to Boston. But the longer this Bregman thing drags out, it's only going to, close the window on an Arenado move. Because there's so many factors that would come into that. I mean, I think the contract the Red Sox would be okay with if the Cardinals ate some of the money, because it's only a 3-year deal at that point. Say what you will about his regression and whatnot, but he would be an upgrade defensively at third base. I think with Arenado, I probably think that's pretty slim at this point because you got money involved. You got prospects involved. Like there'd have to be a lot of things, to work out in a very short amount of time. And I feel like that's just, I see you in the chat, Dario Santana. I disagree. I think there is some sense to it because he would improve the defense at third base. You could move Rafi to DH first, whatever. I would like to keep the bat of Tristan Casas, but if they sent him back to St. Louis in that deal, and the Red Sox also got some young talent to go along with Arenado, I think you could make the argument for it. I don't think it's completely dead, but who knows? We'll see. Randall Grichuk, I still think this could happen. I mean, I'd be kind of on having a couple of righty platoon bats on the bench, but, Randall Grichuk, sure, had a good year against left-handed pitching. Someone like Mark Canha has some versatility. He can play some outfield. He can play, right field. He played 16 games there last year, but has the ability to go out there and, do a little bit of a platoon with Willie or Abreu. He could be a platoon at first base. I could see Mark Canha being a possible addition here, a very low cost, good clubhouse guy. Taylor Ward, he's more of an everyday player. I feel like that's not going to happen. I don't know, man. I think a lot of things, again, you have to look at it where you already have your outfield set. You got Duran, you got Rafaela, and they've already said Rafaela, they see him playing center field, right? You already got Willier, obviously, in right. I mean, the only way I could see this working is if you send back Willier, but I don't know. You'd have to move Willier at that point. And I think the Red Sox are very high on him. I just don't think Taylor Ward's going to happen, right? Because he's an everyday guy. The only way that happens if Willie or Abreu gets moved. That's what I think. So, we'll see. But in the end, if you're to ask me right now, kind of where I'm at with who that right-handed bat is going to be, I'm starting to think it's Christian Campbell. We can, we sit here and we say, yeah, we got to go get this right-handed bat. We got to go get, Bregman. We got to go trade for Arenado, whatever it may be. I really am thinking here, it's probably just going to be Campbell, because we are not hearing. Here's the one thing as well. It's what we're not hearing with Christian Campbell. You're not hearing anything negative about this kid. I'm sorry. I don't want to say kid, right? I mean, he's not that much younger than me. I take that back. But whatever. The point is like, you're not hearing anything negative about him. Nothing. Nothing. Not even like, I don't mean negative in a sense where people say, oh, he's a bad player. No, I'm not saying that. You've heard like the couple of mechanical things, but other than that, you haven't really heard anyone kind of, especially with, reports out there, you're not hearing anyone saying that he can't handle the major league level. There's no opposition, right? There's no pushback against it. It just seems like it's kind of just stirring out there that he could be an option for opening day. Again, like I brought up earlier, Jackson Merrill with the Padres, Jackson Chourio with the Brewers last year. They got thrown into the fire, and they handled it like they've been veterans in the game for a long time, right? Chourio got off to a bit of a slow start, but I'm starting to think Campbell could be the right-handed bat that we've been wondering about. We'll see. We'll see how things play out. Moving on. We got some farm system rankings here. So Keith Law, or no, this was not Keith Law. It was Keith Law. I'm sorry. It is Keith Law. He is ranking the Red Sox farm system second overall. The Mariners coming in at number 1. He has the Dodgers at number 3. Those are the 3 teams in his tier 1. At tier 2, he puts the Diamondbacks, the Guardians, the Cubs, Tigers, and the Reds. And in tier 3, he's got the Rays, the Brewers, the Phillies, the White Sox, the Rangers, Cardinals, and the Mets, rounding out the top 15. But the Red Sox coming in at number 2. This is what Keith Law had to say. Boston's system had a chance to be first before the Garrett Crochet trade, which sent 2 players on my top 100 to the White Sox. For good reason, though. They've got 2 guys in the top 10, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The system is still loaded with position players who at least have everyday ceilings, including a steady stream of potential stars coming out of their international program. It just makes it all the more puzzling that the new baseball operations heads decided to pull a midnight massacre on their scouting group, notably the pro side, just as the system has recovered from a low point in the wake of the 2018 World Series win. Farm systems don't get and stay good by accident or magic. It takes people. So I thought that last part was interesting, saying that it makes it all more puzzling that the new baseball operations staff ended up kind of, getting rid of a lot of the scouting group, right? They've done a good job over the years, but I guess they felt like they needed to make a change. I don't know. Now, he has the Mariners at number 1. I'm going to be honest here. Again, from people that I've spoken to that are in the scouting industry, obviously Keith Law's out there too. But from what I was told personally, that the person that I spoke to, he said, along with other scouts out there that he's spoken to, that the Red Sox system is head and shoulders above, that they are by far number 1. So I'm not disagreeing with Keith Law, but really, when you think of the Red Sox top prospects, like I said, you got Roman Anthony, who's getting comparisons to when J.D. Drew was coming up. Obviously, J.D. Drew had a good career, but, underwhelmed compared to what people were expecting out of him. To the type of player that the type of career he thought he would end up having. Still very good career. But again, that's his scouting report coming up. He was like the next best thing since sliced bread, if you go back to that time. Roman Anthony, I'm not saying the same thing's going to happen, but he gets very similar reports, right? The way, just the way he is with his pitch selection, his plate discipline, the bat speed. That's also very similar with the J.D. Drew scouting report, where he doesn't look like a guy, he doesn't look like a Barry Bonds up there. He doesn't look like, he's not the biggest guy. He's got some good size on him, but he's not like, this juiced up guy, right? But the one thing I thought was very interesting with Roman Anthony compared to J.D. Drew was the way how it described how the ball jumps off the bat, right? It's the bat speed with Roman Anthony. It's the explosiveness of it. It's just the way the ball sounds different coming off his bat, right? He's very strong hands. That's what I find very interesting about his scouting report. I'm obviously very excited about him. All right, Christian Campbell, we've already talked very in depth about him. I've mentioned this before. He reminds me a lot of Mookie Betts, right? Just has that explosiveness to him. He's like a bigger Mookie Betts, if that makes sense, right? Has an explosive swing, has good plate discipline. Another thing about Christian Campbell as well is he's got good pull side power. And that's another reason why I wonder if the Red Sox feel like he is the bat. It's the pull side power that he has. They feel like his bat probably plays at Fenway Park, right? Obviously, Marcelo Meyer. I think with Meyer at this point, there's a lot to like with him. I think he's just going to be an overall solid player. With Meyer, he's kind of like a nice luxury to have because you already have Trevor Story under contract, but you never know with Story, right? You don't know what's going to happen with him on the injury side of things. Meyer, he showed a lot of good things this past year. Still needs to be a bit more productive against the left-handed pitching. But I feel like that's only going to be a matter of time before he starts to figure that out. The bat speed with him, he's also got that underrated kind of power where he can just hit the crap out of the ball. He's got the quick hands, he's got the smooth swing. I would say probably not Corey Seager, but you see a little bit of him in there, right? You see a little bit of him with that swing. I think Meyer, when you got three guys like this, like Keith Law said, everyday kind of players. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, right? And I'm not even trying to be biased towards the Red Sox farm, but that doesn't happen very often. Does not. Man, oh man. But then, you also got some other position players here. Like Franklin Arias really, really came through this past year. Had a breakout year in the minor leagues. You got a couple of guys here, Miguel Blaze, Uelen Cespedes, who are further away, kind of rounding out the position player side of things there, where they're further away, but they have very high ceilings. Now, where I think Keith Law, where he gets held back a little bit, it's the pitching side of things. I think with Keith Law and also with Kylie McDaniel, I think that was another thing he mentioned. Kylie McDaniel also mentioned that he has the Red Sox farm system number 4 overall. And he also mentioned the pitching side of things. But if you look at the pitching, right, that is something the Red Sox lack at this point, is like a top pitching prospect, right? Haven't had a whole lot of those in Red Sox land. You had Clay Buchholz, you had John Lester, you had guys like that. But it's been a while. Tanner Houck, the most recent one. But it's not very often you see that much when it comes to the Red Sox pitching prospect side of things. But they got some guys here that have really emerged, right? Luis Perales showed a lot of good things this past year. Obviously, had the injury. But Hunter Dobbins really stepped up this year. He's improved that arsenal, right? Richard Fitz looks like a pretty solid, at the very least, back end rotation kind of a guy. Maybe even just a solid bullpen arm at some point. I like Richard Fitz a lot. I think he has like that high floor. He can kind of just gives you good production, right? Peyton Tolley, there's a good base with him. Just drafted him this past year. There's still things with him where the Red Sox, they see a high ceiling with him, right? A guy that has already a high floor, but they feel like they can tap into a bit more there because he has good extension. He gets a lot of swing and miss. He's a little tougher to pick up. Peyton Tolley, I think keep your eye on him this past year. And obviously David Sandlin, who we spoke to the other day. Obviously, this guy's a flamethrower. This guy's got gas. He just kind of needs to work on the control, right? Needs to work on the placement, kind of tinker with the off-speed stuff a little bit more, the pitch selection. But there's a lot to like with David Sandlin, right? Connolly early. This guy had a pretty solid year this past year. So you do have good pitching in this organization, right? Even Luis Guerrero, look out for him this coming year. He could definitely have an impact. Zach Penrod, look out for him. So they got guys that can be productive on the pitching side of things. And getting back to the position players, right? Someone like Mikey Romero, who's kind of in the middle, right? Where you have Yoelan Cespedes and Miguel Blaze, who are further away. Marcelo Myers knocking on the door. But, Mikey Romero, he's kind of right there in the middle. Gives you an extra option there, right? And he could end up being pretty solid. I'm very excited to see what he can do. There's a good amount of talent in this Red Sox farm system, man. That's why I kind of wonder, no disrespect to the Mariners. They got a lot of good talent over there too, but I just feel like the Red Sox, I think the pitching side of things gets a little bit underrated, personally. And I think they do need to add a bit more there to make it a bit more convincing, but I absolutely think the Red Sox have an argument to be the number one farm system. I really do. I just think that if you can get some of these pitchers to really step up this year and have themselves a good year, I wouldn't be surprised if you have some mid-season rankings, updated rankings, and the Red Sox are at number one. Wouldn't be surprised at all. All right. Just kind of based off looking at it, people that I've spoken to, there's a lot of excitement there, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of excitement. Now, there was also a bit more excitement this past weekend. Jim Bowden going on Foul Territory and talking about Xander Bogaerts. The Padres have said they'd trade a top prospect with Xander Bogaerts if another team is willing to take on his contract. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to nip this in the butt now because I'm already starting to see it. No, the Red Sox should not bring back Xander Bogaerts. Listen, I love Xander. There was another example of a guy where you kind of eased him in, right? Xander was another one, right? Getting back to that point, right? Brought him up in 2013. There was another one, right? You eased him in, you let him cook, right? That's the way the Red Sox have done it. That's why I feel like the Red Sox should go get Alex Bregman, for crying out loud, right? Only on a good deal. Now, Xander Bogaerts, listen, I love him. Will always love Xander Bogaerts, right? I still remember when he got called up. I was so excited about it, right? Because I was like, finally, I get to see what this guy can do at the major league level, man. It's so much hype, right? And then obviously seeing what he did in the postseason in 2013. From that point on, love Xander Bogaerts. But taking him back at this point is not a good idea. It's not. And I need to nip this in the butt. We got to stop it. Here's why, right? He's on the wrong side of 30, and he's got 9 more years left on that deal. 9 more years. I've been seeing Alex Bregman, people saying, no, Bregman, don't bring in Bregman on a 6-year deal. Don't bring him in on a 7-year deal. But then I see some of these people out there, they're like, oh man, I would love to have Xander Bogaerts back. What? What are we talking about? 9 years of Xander Bogaerts? I mean, what in the heck are we talking about? Listen, would he be productive? I feel like if you brought him back, yeah, he gives you an option, right? He definitely gives you a pretty solid bat there. But listen, I still remember, go back to when Xander Bogaerts signed with the Padres. People were furious about it. Red Sox fans, they couldn't believe it. They were calling the Red Sox front office cheap. They were saying, like, how could you do this? This Red Sox front office is not serious. How did you let this happen? And I'm thinking, am I the only one? I remember this exactly at the time because I went live for it on my main channel. I was thinking, am I the only one out here saying that this is probably a dodged bullet? Because he signed an 11-year deal. Remember, you had all the reports that there could be momentum building towards a 6-year deal. And all of a sudden, I don't know, you see the Padres sign him to 11 years. And I'm thinking, what? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned at that. No, the Red Sox should not have done that. That's the Padres. They were in a position where they were ready to be aggressive, right? They were coming off, what was it, that National League Championship Series where they got ousted by the Phillies? They were trying to make some stuff happen. And, they went after Aaron Judge. They went after Trey Turner. And they said, all right, we got to get someone. All right, offer Bogaerts 11 years. And it's like, what? Like, that's just being aggressive without even thinking in my head. Because Bogaerts, when you go back to the numbers, the advanced metrics with him, when you go back, they were starting to decline a little bit. Honestly, I could be wrong on this. Someone maybe go find this for me. I feel like the way Bregman's numbers right now, his advanced metrics on StatCast, I feel like Bogaerts were around the same. Right? But then I'm thinking, Bogaerts with those metrics at a picture-friendly park at Petco, I'm like, what are they doing? Bogaerts, would his bat play at Fenway Park? Of course it would. Obviously, it did for years, and it would be a fun story. But when you're looking at it from a financial point of view, and you're looking at it from an organizational point of view, no. At that point, I'd rather just bring in Bregman for 6 years than Bogaerts for 9. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do a Bregman on a 6-year deal. I'm not saying I'd rather do that if I had the choice, because I don't want a 9. Oh, we got some breaking news. Jack Flaherty heading to the Tigers. Oh man, we got to wrap things up here. I might have to go live for that in just a little bit. Oh wow, we got a big super chat here. Big super chat. Cal, $50 super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. You say here, extend Crochet, extend one of Anthony or Campbell, and either scam Colorado out of Seth Halverson or sign David Robertson for a year. That's an A+ offseason. I agree with you. I think they need to extend Crochet. I think that does happen at some point. I would not be at all opposed to an extension for Anthony or Campbell, and then go get Seth Halverson from Colorado. Well, who knows about that one. And then I would like the David Robertson deal for a year. I think that makes a lot of sense for the bullpen. A right-handed bat absolutely makes a lot of sense. They need a right-handed pitcher at the back end of the bullpen. Absolutely think that makes sense. I think they need to go do that. Yeah, I think that for me, if I'm thinking of the moves they've made so far, and if you put all of those on top of it, I think that's at least an A. I could see people saying like a B+, right? Because I think it's that right-handed bat that people are still looking for. That's the one thing, I could see if you brought in Grichuk, the majority of people would say, there's, okay, fine. Right-handed bat, fine. Grichuk, okay. That's where I feel like the majority of people would probably say A, right? But yeah, I'm with you there. I definitely think you got to do these kind of things. I love the idea of extending Anthony or Campbell. I think at least one of them will get some kind of an extension like that long term. If they think Christian Campbell and Anthony are ready for opening day, I don't see why you would not, right? Go do a Corbin Carroll kind of a deal. Go do, the Jackson Chourio kind of deal. I think that's cool. I think they need to do that, right? It makes a lot of sense to get ahead, right? People say, oh, it's a small market kind of a move. No, I think that's just a good financial move. Try to buy out a couple of years of those free agent years after the arbitration. Yeah, I think an 8-year deal for Christian Campbell or Roman Anthony makes a lot of sense. Garrett Crochet, yeah, I think you got to get him signed up. I think a 5-year deal for Garrett Crochet is a good middle ground there, so that way he can go into free agency and he can go test the market, but the Red Sox get a couple of years, get a couple of his free agent years. I think that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, David Robertson, Yeah, I think that's a perfect 1-year deal for the back end of the bullpen. It gives a guy that's flexible. He could either set up or close. But everyone, thank you for coming out here for tonight's episode. You can find Monster Territory here on YouTube. You can also go find it on Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Apple, whatever it may be, wherever you find your favorite podcasts, you can find them there as well. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up here tonight.